before I do, how many athletes here have ever doubted themselves and their ability to swim as well as they knew they were capable of swimming at the time, and doubt prevented that from happening, where you just didn't think you could do it, but you really could? Raise your hand. Probably everyone in here. And if you haven't experienced that, there's a likely chance that in your future you will. And there are different words for that. Some people call it a plateau. And coaches are always debating, well, is that physical or is that mental? And what has to improve first? The performance to give the athlete the confidence to swim better, or the confidence to give the athlete the ability to swim better? And I thought that I would share with you all a story that I kind of encountered myself as a child, and think that it will put in perspective what you might be dealing with when this happens to you. I grew up on the coast of North Carolina, and our house was right on the ocean, and I spent a lot of time with my brothers and my father surfing and sailing, and the ocean was just a big part of our life. And through that process, I grew very comfortable in the ocean. I kind of understood, sharks didn't really scare me because I knew that if there were sharks in the water and the water was murky and there was bait fish out there, I had no business going out surfing. If they were out there and the water was clear, it was probably okay to go surfing because the kind of sharks that were in the area of North Carolina I was in didn't attack people. It just wasn't the nature of that shark. And when I was, I think, 13 years old, my father took me to see a movie, and the name of the movie was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You guys ever heard of that?
Yeah.
It was the first movie ever filmed with underwater cameras. And the plot of the movie is this giant squid that attacks boats and people, and it just eats them and destroys them. And I watched that, and I had a little brother who was almost as good a surfer as me. He's 2 years younger than me, but he wasn't quite as good. But nothing really bothers my younger brother. I mean, nothing bothers me. And I'm kind of the opposite. I like to, I have to analyze things. I have to feel comfortable with things to feel comfortable with myself. It affects my confidence if I don't understand what I'm facing and confronting. And we continued to go out surfing, and it was usually just my brother and I in the mornings and sometimes late afternoons after swim practice. And I found myself starting not to enjoy the sport as much as I used to when nothing bothered me. But I don't think I could really identify that. I just knew I had this hesitation about me. I would go out in the water and I didn't feel quite as comfortable. Something was going on and I couldn't identify it. I'd take off on a wave and it just didn't quite feel the same. And I would look over at my brother, and I'm watching my brother just get better than me. He's just making leaps and bounds, doing these things that he couldn't do before, things that I was able to do that I wasn't doing quite as well anymore. And I could not figure it out. There was just a hesitation in what I was doing, and the love for what I was doing was slightly fogged, and I couldn't figure it out. And my senior year in high school, I went to a swim team banquet, and they served salads, and on top of the salads were squids, and they were about this big. And another thing that I didn't add to this was my dad was a tough guy. I was always afraid to tell him that I had a weakness. So I didn't bother to ask my dad what a squid was like. And there wasn't a lot of information. You didn't have internet back then, so you couldn't find out a whole lot. Other than talking to my brother, I didn't really share this with anyone else because, again, it wasn't something I could specifically identify. But the minute I saw that squid on that salad, I ran over and I looked at my swim coach and I said, Coach Sutton, is this a squid? He goes, yeah. I go, do they get bigger? He goes, they get bigger. I go, do they harm people? He goes, yeah, they really live so deep in the ocean, you very rarely will see them on shore. And if you do, they don't eat meat. I go, so this thing's harmless to people. He goes, it's harmless. And I started to think back. The day that I watched that movie was the day my love for surfing started to develop a fear in the ocean that didn't allow me to completely enjoy the experience I was going through. And I believe that octopus is just like a concern or doubt or fear that you have in your mind when you stand on that block to race. It doesn't even really exist. And yet you can grow it and build it in your mind to become bigger than life itself. And you'll find that you will not enjoy what you're doing, much less reach the full potential of your ability as an athlete. So I encourage you the next time that happens to really ask yourself, what's creating that doubt? And does it really exist in what you're trying to accomplish? And chances are you're going to find that it does not. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for allowing me to talk.